England's captain, Owen Farrell, has stepped back from playing international rugby. Now, is that just for now, for the Six Nations coming up in the new year, or is that for good? Personally, I hope very much it's the former of those two, because if you've watched the channel for any length of time, you will know I am a massive Owen Farrell fan, one of the biggest. So I was gutted when I saw this news yesterday, and all the talk about what this means for England, who should be their fly half, I'll definitely have that conversation, but I think that's for another day. What I want to talk about here, and what the most important conversation right now, I believe, is why and how has this happened, and what does this mean for our sport? What are the ramifications? Lots to talk about. I'm Tim, this is Egg Chasers. Humbled by how well this year has gone. As we move towards December and the end of the year, it's been a wild ride, and at the Six Nations, started with like 2,000 subscribers having started this thing this year, and now over 60k, and I thank you so much if you've subscribed. If you haven't already, maybe I'll earn your subscription on this video, and you can help spread the word, share the show, just give the video a thumbs up, that really helps, and get stuck in the comments. What do you make of this? Owen Farrell stepping back from playing international rugby. The statement given by his club Saracens, quote, Owen has decided to take a break from international rugby to prioritise his and his family's mental well-being. Now, to emphasise what a big decision this is, and why this should maybe ring the odd alarm bell for rugby fans, not just England rugby fans, is the fact there was one phrase Owen Farrell used after the semi-final defeat to South Africa in the World Cup last month. Owen Farrell said, "I'm so proud to be English." That's what he said in his post-match interview. He didn't say, "I'm so proud to play for England, so proud to represent my country." He said, "I'm so proud to be English." Because for Owen Farrell, pulling on that white jersey, wearing that rose, is more than rugby. He is serving his country, a country he loves to his core. So for him to make this decision, it's massive. And it must have been something serious going on that has caused it. Now, it's something I've talked about on the channel a bunch, that I cannot fathom, and I do not understand the level of criticism that Owen Farrell gets. From England fans and from non-England rugby fans. I just don't get it. It's on a level beyond any other player in world rugby, as far as I see. I don't think there is anybody that gets treated the way Owen Farrell does. Disproportionately. I mean, you're allowed to not like a player. There's some players I prefer to others. But there's lines that get crossed, aren't there? And what is that line, I guess, is the question. Now, I'll just stick a pin in this. This is something I'll come back to in a minute. There is one moment, I think, that has caused this. This is purely my speculation. Well, first bit of speculation is I think this is ultimately about Owen Farrell's family, a family that he keeps incredibly private. Doesn't share any information. He's not on social media. He doesn't talk about them. And I think that's what this is about, because Owen Farrell is a tough man. His family, his dad and his uncles and stuff are from, in fact, not far from where I live now. They're from Wigan. And they're a tough family, mentally and physically. And Owen Farrell is, he's able to take so much weight on his shoulders, and the water is, off a duck's back with some of the criticism he gets. But for his mum, for his wife, for his kids, maybe it's a different matter. I think this is, and it's speculation on my part, I think this is about his family. And I also think it's about, ultimately, one incident, which was the straw that broke the camel's back, when World Rugby hung Owen Farrell out to dry just before the World Cup. We'll talk about that. But let's talk about criticism more broadly. He gets a lot of it. And you know what? That's absolutely fine with me. But like I say, there are lines that get crossed, aren't there? And when you're talking about what is that line? Is it booing? There was a lot of booing in the World Cup. I mentioned this on my videos a number of times. And in fact, here's England's attack coach and also a former teammate of Owen Farrell at Saracens, Richard Wigglesworth, talking about the amount that he got booed during the quarter-final against Fiji.
Tallest trees catch the most wind, and he seems to catch a fair bit of it. So, look, proven time and time again. And I don't understand why in England we feel the need to not celebrate that, not enjoy it just because he's not sat in front of social media or media lapping all that up. He's incredibly serious about his career. He's incredibly proud Englishman. He affects any team he's in. And he was brilliant for us, as we knew he would be. Like that was the maddening part of any noise. We knew what was coming.
Yeah, as I say, I mentioned it on videos on this channel. The booing that he got through the World Cup was relentless. It really annoyed me, to be perfectly honest. But I don't see that as crossing a line. I don't like it. I don't choose to do it personally. But if that's how you want to express yourself in the crowd, that's absolutely fine. I think part of it is the culture in France, and they're a little bit more vociferous in the crowd, a bit more like football crowds, and fair enough. There was definitely some England fans that were doing it, and that I just cannot understand. But you know what? If that's how you want to express yourself in a crowd, I'd argue maybe it says more about you than anything, but that's not crossing the line in my book. And before I go any further into what I think has possibly caused this, it's important to set the context. Firstly, on Owen Farrell, who is the second... I mean, this is just mind-blowing that he gets criticism when you say this. He is the second highest point scorer in the history of rugby union. Just let that sink in. Out of everybody that's ever played our sport, only one person, Dan Carter, has scored more points on an international rugby field. That alone should make him a living legend. He's also England's top point scorer, obviously. He was on course, and I hope he eventually, at some point in the future, breaks this record. He was on track to beat England's all-time record appearance in terms of caps. He is a former World Player of the Year nominee a couple of times. He's a former European Player of the Year winner. He's a 3-time European champion. He is a 6-time Premiership champion. I don't know what more the guy has to do to prove himself, but nevertheless, all that's happened through his 11 years of wearing that England shirt is that people have had the knives out for him and saying that someone else should be wearing a shirt for England, whether that's Danny Cipriani, whether that's Marcus Smith. He never has got the respect that his talent deserves, in my opinion. But you know what? If you want to criticise him, I absolutely get it. It's also been, if you want to set the context, been a difficult 4 years overall, if you think about it. So if you think the World Cup final in 2019, that must have been tough to get over. Then you had the whole COVID thing, which, being a rugby player, that made things really, really hard. There was the Saracens salary cap scandal, which Owen Farrell was the captain of the team, and you know he would have had to shoulder a lot of burden on that. You've had, I mean, the media stories around Owen Farrell and the stick he gets about Marcus Smith. He's just had 4 years. Between World Cups, it's just been 4 years of you shouldn't be playing for England, Marcus Smith should be. And he takes it, and he turns out, and he does the business every time. And I think actually he's turned a lot of people round with his performances, not least in that World Cup semi-final when he was absolutely immense. On the highest stage, the better he plays. But what happened? Well, do you remember, on top of all of those things which have happened in the last 4 years, just before the Rugby World Cup, the circus, and there's no other word for it, that surrounded Owen Farrell after that tackle, clumsy tackle, poor tackle, against Wales in the World Cup warm-up game. He tackled Taine Basham, and people lost their marbles at that, firstly. Again, because it was Owen Farrell, lost their marbles in a way they don't for other players. But then World Rugby hung this guy out to dry by having that really prolonged process where they were they going to put in an appeal? Weren't they going to put in an appeal? We were hearing conversations, second hand, third hand, and then they did it, and it took about 10 days, and it was so bad that his dad, who never speaks about stuff like this, said this.
What I probably would say at this moment in time, that the circus that's gone on around all of this is absolutely disgusting, in my opinion, disgusting. And I suppose those people that have loved the time in the sun get a few more days to keep going at that.
Rest assured, for Andy Farrell to use those words publicly, that gives you an insight into how bad maybe it was for Andy Farrell's wife, Owen Farrell's mum, and Owen Farrell's wife and kids and stuff. I think that was the frustration of all of that coming out through Andy Farrell, and Owen Farrell kept his mouth shut through this whole process and just got on with doing the job. But I think the broken judicial system that World Rugby have overseen, and the absolutely flawed process, and then the awful way that they handled it, and the way that they just left this vacuum which journalists and fans and social media just filled with really nasty stuff. It was personal more than it was. And again, no one else in World Rugby would have got the treatment Owen Farrell got in those 10 days when World Rugby just left him hanging out to dry. And I think they've got a lot to answer for here. And I hope it might be the little kick up the backside to sort out their judicial process so that there isn't a repeat. As for the broader subject of social media and stuff, we've heard Wayne Barnes talking about the stick that he's got. I'd just say, don't go on social media. Owen Farrell's a very, very smart man not to bother. But it must be unavoidable, and if your parents or your wife or your kids start getting upset by that, I can imagine that must take its toll. So I'm not sure there's anything you can or should be done about that, but certainly I hope Owen Farrell gets the respect that his talent deserves. I hope he wears an England jersey again, because he is our best fly half. He's one of the greatest players ever to put on our jersey, and he deserves credit. And he deserves to be enjoyed and celebrated for his talents whilst he's wearing an England shirt. Because what I don't want to happen is he retires from international rugby and then people start saying what a great player he was. It's very interesting that when he got his 100th cap and he was talking to the media, one of the comments he made was, "I'm not used to having people say nice things about me." Maybe now we're facing with maybe never seeing Owen Farrell in an England shirt again. Maybe we should start saying nice things a bit more often, eh? What do you reckon? As you will know, and as you may have picked up from this video, this is a guy I think is an incredible player, a top bloke as well. I would never say don't criticise players, because criticism is part of the sport, it's part of the job, it's totally legitimate. There are always lines that shouldn't be crossed, but above all, just give people respect for the talent that they've got, and he is truly one of the greats. I hope we see Owen Farrell in an England shirt again, and I hope I see you on the next video.